All muted.
Yeah, I mean, we can just start unmuted at first. Yeah, I like to start with a little energy up top. You know what I mean? Are we on now? Doesn't look like it.
My corner says live on YouTube, so I think we might be up.
Oh, are we live? Are we doing it? Is it happening?
I think we're doing it.
Okay, let's just do it. Hi. Let's start by giving ourselves a round of applause to you guys, not to me. I didn't do anything. Congratulations. So hopefully we're actually live. I'm not sure if we are, but we'll just go with it. We are today. I am Carrie Lee Cartwright. I'm moderating, and for the cast of Winchester, written by Catherine Vondy and directed by Jesse Lee Mills. It's featuring Amanda McDonald, Kara Contreras McDonald, Cassidy Davis, Skylar Girion, and Maggie Dorfman. Video editing by Alfredo. How do you say his last name? Is it Trueba? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that. Sorry if I butchered that, Alfredo. And then dialect coaching by Megan Prawl. Welcome everyone! Yay!
Hi.
So happy we're all here together. And for anybody, does it still say we're live to you, Jesse? Does it show that? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, your cast member Skylar might be popping in at some point. So hopefully she does, so we can get a chance to talk to her. Well, first of all, like, does anybody want to jump in? How was it watching yourselves? I assume you guys all watched it. Did you watch it with the audience, or had you seen it before? Anybody?
So Kat and I have spent the last couple of days communicating with Alfredo in terms of getting the editing just so. So we've had the pleasure of getting to see these performances on repeat for a few days, which has been really great, and sort of figuring out the exact timing of the music, which we can spend many minutes talking about how fun it was to pull those 90s rock songs. Yeah, and figuring out exactly how to move this along, because there's so much that happens in these two worlds. So the pacing of moving between these spaces was pretty important as we were working through it. But for me, it was really fun to rewatch it and rewatch it as it was meant to be told. We filmed it with we filmed all of 994 and all of 1994 as a sequence, and so to see that in dialogue was really
Cut
great
together.
Yeah,
that's so lovely. Yay. Catherine Vondy, do you want to go ahead and like give us some sort of like your, I don't know, not like an elevator pitch, but like sort of what is sort of like your inspiration for this? Because there's definitely like super sister theme, right? So
totally, yeah.
First of all, do you have a sister?
I do have a sister.
Okay.
So, that's probably, where a lot of the ideas came from. But also in addition to that, I think I was thinking a lot about female friends I had that were like sisters. So there's a lot of, those kinds of relationships that are worked into the ideas that I was thinking about as well. And where the whole concept came from, really, it didn't like have a great origin story. It was just kind of an idea that popped into my head one day when I was brainstorming, and it stuck. A lot of ideas come into your head and then they like fly away, but this one kind of stuck. And I'm from Winchester, Virginia, and so that also makes sense. Probably it all adds up, right?
Yeah.
And I actually went to England a couple of years ago and made my friend that I was staying with go to Winchester, England with me, just to check it out and see what it was like. Because at that point, I was pretty sure that I wanted to write this Winchester concept that I had, and I felt like I wouldn't like really be able to feel comfortable writing it if I hadn't at least, stepped foot in Winchester, England for like a couple hours.
And then you get to write off your whole trip because it's research.
Yes, that's great for my taxes.
You're like, I needed this beer. I needed all
research.
my meals. Yeah,
exactly.
It was research. I really want to know what they're drinking. Let's see. That's really awesome. Can I ask how you kind of got involved with the vagrancy and this whole blossoming project? How you came to it, and then kind of what that experience was like as you're developing this new idea, this new play.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually been involved with the vagrancy for a couple years. I started, I don't even remember which year it was, but I was just part of the writers group one year. And then Caitlin, who is the artistic director, asked me the next year if I would be interested in being the moderator of the writers group. And I was like, sure. And so I've been doing that for, I guess this is maybe my fourth year being the moderator of the writers group, but it's the first year being the moderator of a writers group that was entirely virtual the whole way through. Previous years, we met in person. It was a lot more tactile and face to face. Last year, it started off in person and then kind of transitioned to being virtual. This year, it was all virtual. So that was, everything last year was virtual.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a little bit of a different experience than it had been in previous years, just because it sort of shapes the development process differently. I think one of the ways that things changed in the virtual iteration was that we didn't have the opportunity to hear the words read aloud as much as we did in the in-person iteration. So that was kind of, a little bit of an adjustment. But on the plus side, it also allowed for a lot more flexibility in terms of, being less stressed about like, oh, I've got to get to the meeting on time. So it was a give and a take.
Out of curiosity, does the meeting sort of run like a little bit like of a loose writer's room, but everybody's like, do people like pitch on your kind of show kind of thing? But then like everybody is writing their own episode, but it's like their own play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's less, I think it's not so much like writer's room style where we're not really contributing to that extent to each other's work, I think. And I'm sure the other writers can talk about it when their talkbacks happen. It's more kind of like reading somebody's pages and then responding with how it made you feel or what you were confused about and giving your feedback, that they can interpret however they want in order to help move their play forward, however it needs to be moved forward.
Sure. I can imagine that having that sort of touchstone for the group, even though you were virtual and it was very different during the pandemic, quarantine was like kind of great in a lot of ways, I imagine, because, you're connecting with people who are also trying to tell their stories, and that's really cool.
Absolutely. And it was one of my most like regular social interactions during the pandemic. And definitely, even though we still haven't met in person, I definitely feel like the other writers, we're all buddies. We've got each other's backs, which is really nice.
Oh, well, hopefully you guys will all get to meet at some point and have a good drink, have some dessert. Okay. Jesse, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to the project?
Yeah, so I worked on a play that Kat wrote 2 years ago. And similarly, Caitlin, the artistic director, invited me to come on board. I'm now the directors group moderator, and so now Kat and I work together and are the liaison between the writers group and the company, and the directors group and the company.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Kat and I also have sisters, and we connected on this project pretty quickly. And I love Kat's work. I think it's so sharp and funny, and digs into really exciting and important stories in a way that it moves very quickly and goes into such in-depth conversations that span, in this case, in this story, a millennia, which was a really exciting thing to see what it looks like for two sisters living worlds apart to similarly be fighting for agency and autonomy and personal freedom.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I like that you guys have worked together and you're working together again. Cassidy, you played Jennifer. Let's see. How did you kind of come to the Vagrancy in this whole project? Have you done plays with the Vagrancy before?
Yeah, so I'm a Vagrancy company member. So I also worked with Jesse and Kat on one of the last plays in Blossoming. I can't remember. Was it 2 years ago? It feels like it wasn't that long ago. Okay, great. It was 2 years ago. So,
Time anymore.
I mean, for real. So yeah, I worked on that play, and then when I got asked to be part of this, I was like, the dream team is back. Like, I'm so excited to be back with them. So yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Let's see. And then we have Amanda McDonald. Okay, can you say your character's name again for us?
Yeah. It's Gonbra.
Yeah, it is. It sure is.
Hope I did it justice, Kat.
You did it. Yeah, how was it playing this role? And do you have sisters or really great like sister friends that you
Yes.
draw from?
To all of the above.
Okay.
Kara is my real life sister.
I figured, yeah.
And we're very close. And then we're also really close with our sister-in-laws. We have 3 older brothers. So we've known a couple of them for most of our late teens, early 20s since then. But yeah, lots of older female. I think I technically am the older sister, but all of my brothers' wives are older than me. So it's a fun dynamic to like learn the little sister thing as well. And it was fun to pull the dynamic into these characters because it kind of already just lives on the surface for us.
Yeah. I really liked your guys' dynamic. That was just really, and I mean, I'm sure it was, special because you guys are actual sisters. So, those kind of fights, even though it kind of felt like you were speaking a different language because you essentially were, you could still very much communicate with each other. So that was really beautiful to see. Kara, do you want to talk a little bit about how it was to work with your sister? Have you guys ever worked together before?
I was just thinking,
What?
we've never.
No,
we've
that's
never worked together.
amazing.
So like first time, and we get to be sisters in it, which was really fun. And we're also roommates too, so
we're in the same house right now.
I was kind of wondering that. I was like, are they just like in different rooms because the color is similar on your walls? And I was like,
I'm upstairs, she's downstairs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
But it was nice to rehearse with her too, and to kind of bring in the actual, like, I played her younger sister in this. I am her younger sister. So like the older younger was easier to play with just because we've had all of the fights of an older sister, younger sister. And so it was very easy to like, oh, this kind of reminds me of this time, and it kind of could just easily get played.
Oh, I love that. Jesse, do you want to talk a little bit about like how did you rehearse for this? Like how many rehearsals did you guys have? And were like Cassidy and Skylar together in the same room ever? And Kara and Amanda obviously lived together, so they were in the same room.
Yeah, so we broke it up by we were really rehearsing 1994 and 994 separately, and then there was one day where we came together and there was that choreography sequence where everybody pops on screen. Maybe 2 days where we came together and everybody. Yeah, exactly. Which Skylar isn't here, but really Skylar deserves to be credited for coming up with that sequence.
Oh, is Skylar the choreographer?
Skylar became the choreographer.
Put it on your resume, Skylar.
Exactly. Yeah, so we spent a lot of time in separate worlds, and then there was this sort of beautiful day that it came together and we all figured out what that movement would look like. And we kind of had no idea. The script, hopefully you can tell when the stage directions are read, is so full of vibrant and dynamic movement, and transferring that into a virtual world is a particular and kind of exciting challenge. And so when we got to that world of choreography, we probably spent just the first, 20 minutes generating with each other what this could look like, how this could translate. And we started bigger and then slowly started to actually pare it back until it was a little bit more symbolic, which felt like...
Oops, sorry. That was my sound. Okay, keep going. As you were saying.
Which I think felt like that fit the virtual world of it a little bit more clearly. And we were able to do things where somebody would disappear into the void, where Amanda's character disappears into the void and Kara looks over, and then Kara's character disappears into the void. And that felt like there was something exciting about utilizing the virtual world for that space. And then otherwise it was kind of amazing because we got to see both sets of sisters really move through their whole journey together. Like we filmed so many scenes of 994 at once and really got to see how their journey progressed. And same thing with 1994, we got to see how they there was incremental changes every single scene. And so we got to feel that out as we moved through it. And then seeing it all cut together was amazing to see how these scenes work in dialogue with each other. So yeah, that was more or less the process.
It was really cool to hear the dialogue, and I know part of it's because one is, 1994, so the language is very current. But it was interesting to see in 994 that language, it still felt casual, which was pretty cool. That it could feel like that sort of like lived in and still accessible. Being almost a different language. So that was really cool. And I really loved how you wrote that, Catherine. Was that intentional? Just sort of conversational language?
For sure, because I thought there was a fear that if I stuck too closely to kind of our perceptions of older times, which are very like uptight and rigid, then it was just going to be really, really boring to listen to, especially with, my desire of incorporating Old English words into the dialogue. So then the challenge kind of became, how do you figure out a way to hopefully make things kind of funny occasionally using a totally different kind of diction and sentence structure. And so that was both a really fun thing and also kind of one of the frustrating things, because there would be, days when I was writing where I would sit there for 30 minutes trying to figure out, how do I say this one line in a way that makes sense, feels like it is correct to that time period, correctish to the time period, also makes sense to a modern listener to at least some extent, and is entertaining at the same time. There's a lot of places where I didn't think about what it was going to be like writing it before I came up with the idea. But then as I was writing it, I was like, oh, these are some challenges that I hadn't anticipated, but of course they were there.
Do you walk around your house just speaking like that?
Yes.
Pointing at the toaster and saying whatever, however you'd say it.
Yes.
I'm Kara and Amanda. Did you guys just have a day where you just we're gonna immerse ourselves in this language. We're only going to speak to each other in this language. Did you ever do that?
When we were filming, it would be okay, well, we need to start kind of speaking like this before we get in there. And then we just could, I remember I couldn't get out of it at the rest of one of the days. I just continued the rest of the day. I just couldn't get it out of my ear.
That's so funny. Just turning my light down. That's so funny. Yeah, I think that it's something that gets stuck in your head, but can you remind me, and of course I can't open my script right now, but it's a mashup language, right? It's not, okay. Yeah.
It had
and
a
it's
huge journey. And
do you want to tell us about it?
I don't know what I mean, so we originally were looking up Old English and what that sounded like. And without actually speaking Old English, it's really hard. Accents aren't my forte. So for me, maybe someone would pick it up really quickly. I was like, I have to speak Old English. And I don't know what exactly you were hearing in your head, Kat. So hopefully we went on the journey in the right direction. But it ended up being this, and having our tutorial with Megan was really helpful too, because it started carving out as a group. We all started deciding, oh, it sounds like this, but it's losing context. So let's say it like this. And it just kind of became this hodgepodge of English, Irish, Scottish,
German, Spanish,
Yeah.
like all the things.
It was a really interesting journey that I hadn't really had with language before. It was kind of feeling a little more Shakespeare-like, where you're kind of discovering that certain phrases and certain words meant different things based on how you were saying it, which was really cool.
It's very musical, the language. Yeah, it's very like rhythmic and kind of beautiful, and kind of lulls you into a sense of like just, oh, okay, I'm just gonna listen. You should definitely take on that. You can do accents and, and dialects, because you did quite well. So, just own it. Yeah, Cassidy, how was it for you? You guys, before we turn on the camera, and by the way, anybody who's in the watching the live, if you have a question, throw it in the chat and I'll try to get to it. But Cassidy, you guys were talking about the whole lava lamp choreography, because there's that really great part where like Skylar is moving the lava lamp on one side, and you're moving it together, and it makes one whole lava lamp on your shared screen, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
That was so fun. I mean, it was fun getting like little gifts delivered to my door during this process. Like a soccer ball came and then a lava lamp came. My roommate was like, "What are you doing?" Don't worry about it. Okay.
You're like, don't worry about it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the lava lamp choreography took us a few, because I also had to turn it on at the same time she turns it on, but then not look like I saw it coming, because I think my line after that is like, "You bought a lava lamp, so I can't be like looking at it." But it took us a few tries, but ultimately we got it, I think, pretty quickly. It just took, like, I didn't realize lava lamps need to heat up. You need to heat them up for like 2 to 3 hours. I didn't know that. Now I know that.
So they start moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because you have those lines, that series of lines afterward where you guys it's nighttime and you're trying to sleep. And I think it's like, "I can't sleep." You're saying that. And I'm like, "Turn off the lava lamp. It's too bright." Like, that's why you can't sleep, girl. Or something emotional was blossoming inside of you. Like
One or the other. Yeah.
one or the other. I don't know. Does anybody want to talk about, like, I don't know how, I'm totally calling myself out for how old I am, but I really enjoyed the 90s music. That was a great journey, and that was pretty great. Are those songs like important to you, or were they just like songs that you're like, you looked at the top 20 90s songs and you're like, yeah, that one will work, kind of thing?
I feel like all of the songs that we worked into the reading were, so some of them were ones that I had specifically called out in the script, and others we just kind of added in. Jesse and I had a conversation about it. But I think for all of them, they're all songs that I very strongly associate with fall of 1994. They're all from that year. And I definitely remember hearing pretty much all of them on the radio at that time. So it is very grounded in a very specific season of a very specific year.
It definitely really drops you into like that time period. It's so specific that anybody who knows that music, or anybody who's just a fan of 90s music, it definitely helps set the scene, which is really interesting on like a Zoom type kind of thing. Or I guess it wasn't Zoom, it was YouTube, and you guys edited it, but still on a virtual stage. Are your hopes for the play to put it up at, say, the Vagrancy or elsewhere? I did ask the last playwright kind of what her dreams were for her little baby, like in like the perfect world. Where would it go? What would it see?
I thought Amanda gave a great answer when you asked her that question, and I kind of want to like steal from her answer and say like, yeah, of course, like we want to produce it. We want to see it, go up and have the full experience, not just over Zoom, but like the in real life experience. But also just to be able to make an impact on more people that are seeing it, more actors that are involved with it. Because kind of my thematic purpose in writing this and what I was hoping to get across was to have people take the ideas and the lives of teenage girls a lot more seriously. I think it's really easy for stories about teenage women to be kind of written off as like fluffy or like chick flicks or things like that. And I think that's doing a discredit to them. And so that's kind of, you know, the mission of this play is to say that, no, these are lives that are worth examining and paying attention to. So that's definitely something that I want to get across with the play.
Oh my gosh, that's so gorgeous. I love that so much. It's like kind of makes me a little warm inside. I think, yeah, I think that that's true. Like a lot of younger women in particular, you know, like YA, everybody wants to do it, but it kind of has this like everybody kind of looks at it like, oh, it's not like real or something, but it's like, are you kidding me? There's a reason why it's so popular, because the inner lives and workings of teenage girls is like so full and rich, and there's so much there. And especially for these characters, there's so much like family secret stuff. And I mean, that was a big bomb to drop at the end. Yeah. How was that for you, Kara and Amanda? Sort of, I don't know, acting that out. I mean, it got like real serious, real quickly, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. It was interesting to. It was almost. We actually spoke about this after the filming that we did of that particular scene, and it was almost like the connection over our two screens was stronger and better coming like when we were acting it, when I could see my sister's reaction, as opposed to when I adjusted something in my screen and I couldn't see her. And we discussed that for a minute, because that moment was better when we could actually see how the other was being affected, which was like hitting more close to home.
Yeah, I mean, it was an intense scene, considering it was harder. It's harder to separate. Like if it was like a different actor who's not really your family, I think, and talking about parents dying, there's a little bit of like a disconnect that you can have. And I think for us, it was harder. So it did kind of hit a little heavier to talk about, like, you know, what it's like to tell your sister about how your parents died, and then to hear it on the other end of hearing the truth about your parents, and what that kind of, we only did it like a handful of times, because that was a very intense scene.
2, 3 more, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, it was really beautiful to see that sort of theme of older sibling protection. Yeah, like shielding your younger sibling from truth and reality, which is like, you know, it would be so nice if we were all shielded that way. You know what I mean? Just in the everyday, there's so much heart in that. And it's so relatable, because who doesn't want to do that for somebody? It's like, no, you don't have to grow up and like know this yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. My goodness. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Catherine, as far as like that, how that sort of unfolded with like the Norseman statue? I thought that was super interesting, that she like kind of fell in love with this thing. She created this thing, but it was representative of, for Amanda's character, of who killed their parents. So
Totally. Yeah. So I think I find it really interesting that there's this object that has such different significances to these two sisters. And the moment right before Ashwin decides to destroy it, I find to be like very moving, especially in the way that Kara and Amanda portrayed it, because it's her having to give up something for her sister, because she comes to recognize that this thing has a different meaning and represents something else. And so both sets of sisters have this, I think, experience during the play where they're realizing that when they gain something, their sister loses something, and vice versa. at, you know, kind of different moments to different extents throughout the play. But I think that that's a moment where I was hoping that that would come across like really powerfully, that there isn't kind of an equilibrium all the time.
Yeah, it's almost like a seesaw, or like, you know, there's only so much water. So if it's like somewhere over here, that means there's less over here. And then it kind of flows into the next place. It's so interesting. You know, Cassidy, your character, after hearing the secret at the end, was just like, all of a sudden my brain started going, and I was like, oh, like how your responses were like in earlier parts of the play were really interesting, about sort of like you poo-pooing this sort of crush that she has, which is also so magical. It definitely, just hearing Skylar's character just be so Twitter-pated and like so almost obsessed with this guy, it was like, oh my gosh, been there. Yeah, you captured that really well. You guys had that great dynamic, because it really plays off like, oh, you're just the older sibling who's like, oh my gosh, you're so annoying. Shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think those crushes feel so real. I mean, and it was fun to get to play the voice of reason in the crush, because like I remember having the crush and being like, this is my soulmate, like he and I forever. And it's like, I don't even know where that guy is right now. Like I couldn't tell you, but like they feel so real when it's your first one, you know? So we definitely talked about, you know, when I revealed the secret, whether I was doing it to hurt her or whether I was doing it to protect her. And getting to play with like different versions of like what that moment was.
Oh, that's also that's interesting to put it in a very active place, instead of like just withholding love, but doing it as a means to protect is a really beautiful theme, which kind of flows throughout your whole play. Just really beautiful work. And I don't know, does anybody else have anything else to add about your experience, or kind of how this was starting this in, was it September you guys started this?
I think late September or early October. I can't remember exactly when, but yeah, that's when I started writing it. Jesse came on board shortly thereafter. We had the first read through of the first half of the play in January. We had a read through of the first full draft in April, and then in May was when we were kind of like workshopping it and tweaking it and getting it to the place that it is right now.
Oh, go! I hope it just keeps going and growing and blossoming. Blossoming. I didn't plan that. Anyway, but yeah, unless anybody has anything else to share, I think that kind of does it. You guys, it was just beautiful, and yeah, great job. Well done. Yay! Bye, guys.